Good afternoon. Welcome to EduSet Network. Friends, we are going to discuss a very important topic, party system in India, and especially we will try to understand party system in India in the context of 2014 parliamentary elections just held, and we have seen the result and the government is already in place. So we will try to understand the party system in this context, and for discussion on this very topic, we have in the studio senior academician Dr. M.P. Singh. He is a renowned political scientist and author of several books, and his work on the federalism has been widely appreciated the world over. So I think his knowledge and experience will help us to understand this topic and give kind of insight how to understand the party system. So on behalf, I welcome him for the EduSet lecture. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Amrendraji. As already announced, our objective in this lecture is to analyze the 2014 Lok Sabha elections within the context of the party system. I would look upon the electoral results in relation to the party system and governance of the country. The party system is a very vital institution in any democracy because it links the state and the civil society. It links the framework of the constitution with the framework of socio-cultural structure of the country. So party system is the most vital institution that shapes the governance and politics of a country. What do we mean by a party system? Now, party system is different from the study of a party. Here we are not talking about party X or party Y. We are talking about all the political parties who constitute a system in relation to each other. That's the reference point of the party system. So the aggregate spectrum of the parties constituting the system and what they do for the political system, for governance, for opposition in a political system, that is our brief in this lecture. Now, how do we conceptualize a party system? A party system can be conceptualized in terms of two indicators. Firstly, ideological or policy orientations of various parties. Some parties are centrist, some parties are to the right, some parties are to the left, some parties are nationalists, some parties are regionalists, some parties are have different positions on various cultural issues of the country, economic issues of the country. So that's one aspect or one dimension of the party system, which we may call policy dimension or ideological spectrum of a party system. And the second dimension or second aspect of the party system is the structure of electoral competition among various parties measured in terms of vote share and seat share in the parliament or legislatures. From this dimension, we can divide political parties in party systems in terms of one party dominant system, two party system, multi-party system, and whatever. Now, very briefly, let me give you a brief overview of the various phases of party system evolution in our country. Various phases of party system in the country can be broadly divided into three phases. The first phase is what may be called the consensual one-party dominance, and the general elections from 1952 to 1962, from 1950 to 1967, so to say, is the period when one-party dominant system prevailed in the country with the dominance of the Indian National Congress at the national as well as state levels. The second phase is dominance with dissent, dominance with dissent in the sense that during this phase, covering the general elections of 67, 71, 77, 80, 84, that is from 1967 to 89. During this period, the Congress was the majority party, but the kind of dominance that it enjoyed earlier was gone, but it was still the majority party, and in some brief periods, it also acquired some a temporary phase of dominance. For example, in 1984, Rajiv Gandhi, as the prime ministerial candidate, scored the best performance ever, because the large number of votes that he garnered and large number of seats that he won was the largest in the electoral history of the country. But that was a very brief interlude. So the second phase is dominance with dissent by and large, because the Congress remained a majority party, but at the state level particularly, and also briefly at the national level, non-Congress parties came to power. The third phase is from 1989 to 2014. This phase is called multi-party system. This may be called the multi-party system with coalitional governance, with a great deal of influence of regional parties in the system. So these are the three phases, and we have just begun, we have just started the fourth phase. The fourth phase it has returned in this form after a gap of 30 years. After 1984, all governments in New Delhi were coalitional governments, but in 2014 we have got a single party majority, although the party contested the elections at the head of a coalition, the NDA coalition. BJP contested at the head of the NDA coalition, but BJP alone has won 282 seats, which is a landmark victory, particularly in view of the fact that this has happened in Indian political system after a gap of 3 decades. Now, again, before discussing the mandate 2014, a close look at the phases of coalitional governments would be interesting, in the sense that we have just concluded a period of from 89 to the present, 89 to 2014, just before the 2014 elections, beginning with 1989, there have been coalitional governments or minority government. If we exclude the Congress minority government headed by P.V. Narasimha Rao, 3 kinds of coalition governments, 3 groupings of coalitional configurations have ruled India. The Janata Dal led National Front or United Front, then the BJP led National Democratic Alliance, NDA, and then the Congress led UPA, United Progressive Alliance. These are the 3 kinds of coalitional configurations that have ruled between 1989 to 2014. The first 10 years were very unstable. The stability of governments hardly exceeded a year, in fact less than a year. So quick turnover of governments took place in the first decade after 1989. But beginning with 1999, the BJP-led NDA provided a stable full-term governance under Prime Minister Vajpayee, and then the Congress-led United Progressive Alliance, UPA, provided 2 terms of a stable governance led by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. the fourth phase that we have just started, that is in fact our main concern in this lecture. Now, before the elections, there was a great deal of discussion, in fact a great deal of anxiety in the country what is going to happen in 2014. And the general temper, the general tone and tenor of the discussion was anxiety ridden, and the analysts were fearing that India is going to face a situation where after the elections there may be a period of absence of any government, the kind of situation that had already happened in UP or Bihar, when after elections no government could be formed because of the party system fragmentation. No party had a majority, no party was able to form a coalition government. The kind of situation that Belgium faced recently, for 9 months, nearly a year after an election, no government could be formed because of the party system fragmentation. So that was the kind of anxiety that was being expressed about India early on, but all these anxieties have been washed away by the Modi mandate, by the Modi magic, as many analysts have used the term. The BJP has been able to score a kind of electoral success that has proved to be a turning point in the party system and governance of the country. Now, so early expectations gradually faded or gradually passed away, and the Modi mandate has given the BJP and the NDA have come to power already with absolute majority for BJP, 282 seats in the Lok Sabha, and a thumping majority for NDA with 335 seats in the Lok Sabha. Now, what is the structure of the 2014 mandate nationally? If you take an overview of the national party position, what we have is, the BJP has got 38.3% of the vote share, and 282 out of 543 seats, that makes 51.93% of seats in the Lok Sabha. Allies of the BJP have won 9.76% of seats, and the NDA together 61.69% of seats. Compared to it, the Congress has performed the worst in its electoral history so far. It has won only 8.13% of seats, 44 out of 543 seats in the Lok Sabha. Allies of the Congress, only 16 out of 543 seats, that is 2.95% of the seats in the Lok Sabha, and the UPA together only 11.05% of seats, 60 out of 543 seats, and the UPA vote share amounts to 23.3%. Other parties, other than these two leading national parties, other parties also are not in a very good position, in the sense that other parties, other than the two leading parties taken together, have won 148 out of 543 seats, that makes that amounts to 27.25% of seats in the Lok Sabha, and their total vote share amounts to 35.9%. So the verdict in a summary way heralds the departure from the compulsions of coalition governments that had become the norm since 1989. Now, what is the structure of the mandate? What is the structure of the mandate in regional terms? The structure of the mandate regionally is something like this. BJP, which has been historically strong in the Hindi heartland, western and northwestern India, has done well in this region. A few states has done very well in this region. A few states in these regions that had gone over to regional parties like Bahujan Samaj Party, Samajwadi Party, Janata Dal United, Rashtriya Janata Dal in the two main Hindi-speaking states, UP and Bihar, have now been largely won by the BJP in 2014, mainly on its own or in alliance with very small parties like Lok Janshakti Party, Rashtriya Lok Samta Party and Apna Dal. So this has been historically also the stronghold of the BJP, and this stronghold of the BJP had partially been weakened in Bihar and UP. Particularly, the BJP has consolidated its position, and in fact, the game changer in 2014 are the two states, UP and Bihar, which are the mainstay of the present BJP and NDA victory. Now, the second category of states are those where the BJP has improved its position through important regional allies. Regional allies like the Shiv Sena in Maharashtra, Shiromani Akali Dal in Punjab, Telugu Desam Party in Andhra Pradesh have done very good, reasonably well, and on the support of these parties, the BJP and the NDA has emerged stronger. Some smaller parties in Tamil Nadu also joined hands with the BJP, but their performance has not been as notable as the performance of the major regional parties in Maharashtra, Punjab and Andhra Pradesh, all three important states in the present power structure at the federal level. The third category of states are those where the regional parties still hold the fort. Where the regional parties still hold the fort, they still remain strong, though the BJP has made some inroads in terms of votes and seats. I mean, the AIA DMK led by J. Jayalalitha in Tamil Nadu, Trinamool Congress led by Mamata Banerjee in West Bengal, and the Biju Janata Dal led by Naveen Patnaik in Odisha. Except for Odisha, even in Tamil Nadu and West Bengal, the BJP has gained ground in terms of votes and seats. Kerala is the only notable state which has largely remained impervious to the BJP's pervasive spread in 2014 parliamentary polls. Now, an overview of how the BJP has managed to sweep India electorally. If you compare the data for 2009 and 2014, following is the position. In all categories of voters. Voters across all categories compared to 2009 have voted more strongly for the BJP. For example, women who had voted by 19% in 2009 for the BJP, in 2014 their percentage improved to 33%. Urban voters from 16 to 29%. Increase in increase among rural voters is from 20 to 34%. Increase among upper castes is from 28 to 46%. Even among Muslims, there is an increase of support for BJP, but this increase is marginal from 10% to 17%. 10% of Muslims had voted for BJP in 2009. In 2014, 17% of Muslims voted for the BJP. And the STs, SCs, OBCs, in all these categories, the support for BJP has increased from 20 to 42% among the STs, scheduled tribes, from 18 to 34% among the scheduled castes, and from 19% to 30% among the OBCs or other backward classes. Now, how has the Congress lost? The picture for the Congress is, again, in comparison to 2009, we find that in all India terms, support for Congress has gone down in all categories of voters except for Muslims. Except for Muslims, in all categories of voters, support for Congress has gone down. The increase among Muslims is also very marginal, from 30% to 32%, only 2 percentage point increase. Across all other categories, among women from 25, the drop is to 23%, urban voters 38 to 21%, rural voters 24 to 23%, scheduled tribes 31 to 29%, scheduled caste 23 to 22%, OBCs 23 to 21%. So only among Muslims the Congress could marginally improved its voting percentage by 2%. Now from now on, I would briefly discuss the what does the Modi Council of Ministers portend?
F5.
That is correct?
F5, please.
F5?
Yeah.
F,
No,
sorry, what?
Okay, start.
I think it's here. The card I want, the slide I want is in front of me. I have also my notes, but I want the slide to be on the system for the viewers. What does the Modi Council of Ministers portend? Now, the Council of Ministers, as it has been formed so far, we find, okay. I would make a few observations on the Council of Ministers formed recently. It's a coalition cabinet, but it bears a distinct imprint of Modi and BJP in the sense that the choice for ministerial colleagues made by the Prime Minister has mattered quite evidently. The Sangh Parivar's advice has been minimal. Sangh Parivar has gone on record that it would not interfere with the ministry making, although it offered some advice, like for example, it advised that those above 75 years may be excluded from the Council of Ministers. Now, the BJP and Modi nominees are obviously disproportionately represented in larger numbers in the Council of Ministers, reflecting the structure of the electoral mandate given to the party and the alliance. The allies, each of the major allies have got one cabinet berth each. Shiv Sena has 18 MPs. It has got one berth in the ministry. TDP has 16 MPs. Akali Dal 4, LJP, Lok Janshakti Party 6. But every ally, at least so far, has got just one cabinet berth each. Compared to the UPA 2 ministry, we notice a power shift from the Deccan, South India and Eastern India to Northern India and Western India. In UPA 2, the power structure reflected the dominance of the South and Eastern India. The power structure in the present government reflects the influence, greater influence of the North and Eastern India. Maharashtra has more or less retained its share in the cabinet compared to the previous cabinet and the present cabinet. Now, that is one aspect of the shift in the power structure. States that gained most in the ministry are UP. 9 out of 46 or 20%, Bihar 5 out of 46 or 11%. These are the largest chunks that have gone to any particular states. Now we are talking about the first cabinet formation. There may be expansion of the cabinet later. Now states that the states that lost most are West Bengal. From 8 ministers in the Manmohan Singh government, it has got 0 so far. Tamil Nadu, 1 against 9. Andhra Pradesh, 1 against 6. Kerala had 6, now it has got 0, so far at least. Rajasthan, 1 against 5. States that have retained their hold in the past and the present are Maharashtra, 5 against 9, Karnataka, 4 against 4, Madhya Pradesh, 4 against 4, Gujarat, 3 against 3. That is the composition so far at least. As I said earlier, there may be expansion of the Council of Ministers later on, reshuffles later on. Women, gender sensitivity has been shown, quite strongly, in the sense that 25% of the senior ministers are women, 6 in all so far. Women account for only 11% of Lok Sabha membership, but they have got 25% representation in the Council of Ministers, in fact in senior cabinet positions so far. Now another aspect on which I would briefly reflect or discuss is the power center in the present government as compared to the power center or centers in the UPA. Are we moving from dual power center in UPA to a more unified power center in the NDA? Question mark. That I am problematizing. Restoration of unified governmental power center in NDA 2 from the divided power center in UPA 1 and 2 is apparent, at least to an extent, because the UPA, as analysts have been repeatedly observing for 10 years or so, that the power center in the UPA governments was highly divided. There was a divided power center in the government between the Congress President Sonia Gandhi, who was the president of the party, who was the president of the National Advisory Council that preempted the cabinet in policy making, with civil society and hand-picked advisors to the Congress President. Many considered it an encroachment upon the constitutional authority of the cabinet. Sonia Gandhi was also the chairperson of the UPA coordination committee. So the divided power center between the Congress President and the Prime Minister in the previous regime, which was a common refrain of political analysis, would that change in the present system? There are those who are optimistic that it will change. There are those who also argue that even in the UPA, at least so far, during the campaign and in the government formation so far, the stamp of Modi, the Prime Minister, is quite strong and quite evident. But there are observers who argue that the Sangh Parivar will have its influence, as it always have had in BJP led NDA even in the past. But then there are those who argue that Vajpayee, Prime Minister Vajpayee, had acquired a great deal of autonomy for the government from the Sangh Parivar, and observers also have already argued that Modi, as Chief Minister of Gujarat, had carved out a good deal of autonomy from the Sangh Parivar. He had autonomously performed as the Chief Minister of the state, but there are at least some analysts who doubt whether the experience of Gujarat would be replicated in New Delhi. Christophe Jaffrelot, who is a well-known French expert of Hindu nationalism, he has conceded, he has already argued that Modi was autonomous as Chief Minister, but in an article published before the elections and government formation, just a few days before the election results came, Christophe Jaffrelot argued that the autonomous space for the NDA government in Delhi cannot be taken for granted. He argued that compulsions of electoral politics are there, compulsions of coalitional politics are there, but this time, pressure of coalition partners is not all that great, and the BJP, which had become more moderate under Vajpayee, when it was out of power for 10 years, it had gone back to Hindutva agenda. But it seems to me that Jaffrelot is underestimating the factor of moderation that has already happened in the BJP as a political party, and the factor of moderation that is likely in any coalition government led by BJP, whether it's a BJP dominated coalition or a coalition in which the partners have a greater say. In any formation, in any government, in my understanding, at the national level, Jaffrello, it seems to me, is not properly assessing the impact of federal coalitional governance, impact of electoral parliamentary governance on ideological parties. I am not talking here only about the Hindutva party or Hindu nationalist party. I am also talking about the communist parties. Even communist parties who had an ideology which was not in consonance with constitutional values became moderate and parliamentarized and federalized, and the BJP has also become parliamentarized, federalized and moderated, and this moderation, in my understanding, is likely to continue despite the widespread anxiety and somewhat unjust criticism of Modi as an authoritarian personality. The Prime Minister is acting with such a great, admirable modesty and moderation that any such skepticism appears to be not sustainable. Now, another point that I would like to discuss briefly, are we moving towards a prime ministerial cabinet system? Are we moving towards a prime ministerial cabinet system? For the last 15 years, we have got used to a kind of cabinet system that doesn't appear to be a parliamentary federal cabinet system as we are familiar with in comparative politics. Cabinet system in parliamentary federal Canada, cabinet system in parliamentary federal Australia. Canada is in fact a constitutional twin with India. The constitution, if two countries are constitutional twins, it is India and Canada, because the constitutions of two countries are not only strikingly similar, but they were designed to be made similar because both the constitutions were initially, historically, in earlier forms made by the British Parliament. The Canada Constitution Act of 1867 was also drafted and enacted by the British Parliament. The Government of India Act 1935 for British India, a first federal constitution, was also drafted by the British government, enacted by the British Parliament, and the British government had designed the Government of India Act on the Canada Constitution Act of 1867 because in their perception, Canada and India were similar countries in terms of cultural and regional diversities. So similar constitutions were made for the two, and the kind of cabinet system that we are familiar with in Canada, has not been replicated in India. The cabinet system during the coalitional phase in the last 25 years in India has been such that as an expert of constitution, as an expert of parliamentary federal governance, I would find it difficult to call it a parliamentary federal cabinet system, because we have witnessed a kind of cabinet system going on during the coalitional phase in which the Prime Minister was reduced to a most powerless person, a mute witness, and the constitutional prerogatives and powers and prerogatives of the Prime Minister were appropriated by the coalition partners who treated the ministries allocated to them as virtual feudal fiefdom, in which Prime Minister had practically no say. The Prime Minister, once the formal allocation was made, Prime Minister was unable to make policy initiation, unable to make policy coordination. In fact, the cabinet turned into a fragmented cabal. The parliamentary federal cabinet is supposed to be a collegial cabinet with certain degree of unity of vision and perspective, which was entirely missing for the last 15 years. And the cabinet, it was not really a cabinet, it was a cabal. And the fragmentation of governmental authority was so hopelessly, haywire that any rational, any constitutional decision was difficult to make, and that explains how we suffered during the coalitional phase, first due to governmental instability and subsequently due to policy paralysis or deadlocks and scam after scams in which the Prime Minister and the cabinet were totally unable to control any minister, any individual minister belonging to a coalition partner turned into virtually an independent agent, and therefore it's important to raise the question, are we going to witness the restoration of a constitutional federal cabinet system in the country now? Because the kind of cabinet system we have seen in the past is not really a constitutional cabinet system in my understanding, in my perception and analysis. Now, Modi appears to be, he intends to be the Prime Minister of the cabinet, and by all indicators, it appears that we are going to witness a prime ministerial cabinet system now, a cabinet system in which Prime Minister is the real decision maker, and it is reflected in the allocation of portfolios. Portfolios are allocated to BJP ministers and coalition partner ministers, but the Prime Minister has also made it specific that all policy matters are assigned to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister has in writing assigned all policy matters to the Prime Minister, and therefore no minister can raise a question why the Prime Minister is interfering in a ministry which is which should be left alone. And therefore, we are going to witness a restoration of a parliamentary federal cabinet system in which the Prime Minister is the real head of the government, which the way it should be according to the constitutional norms and values. Modi, who had virtually led a presidential campaign, Modi had virtually led a presidential electoral campaign in the American sense of the term, intends by all available indicators to act as the head of a presidential cabinet, again in the American sense of the term. I have already talked about all policy matters allocated to the Prime Minister. And there is another, subtle point. There is a foreign minister, yet the Prime Minister has appointed an advisor to him, advisor to the Prime Minister on foreign affairs. So, these are clear indicators that we are going to witness the restoration of a constitutional, parliamentary federal cabinet system in the country now. Then Modi has, dispensed with many other features of many other institutions and ideas of governance in the past, in the previous regime.
Before we move, I would like to clarify here one point which you mentioned that
Yeah.
he has appointed foreign affairs advisor. But that was, I think, only in the news, that has not been done.
Okay. So, it has not yet been acted upon. And maybe it may not be acted upon finally. But in any case, all policy matters are, specifically assigned to the Prime Minister. And therefore, in this regard, Modi is going to be a very different Prime Minister compared to Manmohan Singh. He would also be different from Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Atal Bihari Vajpayee generally followed a hands-off approach in cabinet matters, and that may be the reason why Prime Minister Vajpayee, appointed a number of groups of ministers or empowered groups of ministers, which institutions have been carried on by the Manmohan Singh government. In fact, the GOMS and E-GOMS, group of ministers and empowered group of ministers were initiated by Vajpayee, and Vajpayee decided to do that because in the Vajpayee government, the coalition partners were in a much stronger position than in the present NDA government, and therefore Vajpayee, tried to facilitate governance by appointing these groups of ministers to initiate policies, coordinate policies, break deadlocks, remove differences, and this tradition was continued by the two UPA governments, and under the UPA there were 80 groups of ministers or empowered group of ministers. Some of them seldom or never met. Union Minister Pranab Mukherjee, who later became the president, he alone headed as many as 50 GOMS or E-GOMS, group of ministers or empowered group of ministers. So all these have been dispensed with, all these have been abolished, and therefore the Prime Minister would emerge as the most effective instrument or agent of breaking the deadlocks, ironing out differences among ministries. So interministerial deadlocks and differences would be largely removed by the Prime Minister, by the cabinet secretariat, the Prime Minister's secretariat are going to be used much more effectively, going by the professions of Prime Minister Modi, because Modi in his first earlier meetings with the civil servants have assured them that they have nothing to fear. They should objectively offer advice. They should not have any fear or favor in making decisions. Good advice would always be valued, and they would be never out of loop in decision making. So the cabinet secretariat and the Prime Minister's office are also going to be in the loop of the decision making. So these are some observations I would like to make on the kind of cabinet system that may be witnessed in the years ahead. Now, another point that I would like to discuss here is the impact of the 2014 Lok Sabha elections on Indian federalism or center-state relations. We can only expect positive impact of the 2014 mandate on federalism and on center-state relations. Why? Number one, Modi comes to the office of the Prime Minister. Modi comes to the office of the Prime Minister after having served as the Chief Minister of Gujarat for 3 terms, and he is familiar with the problems that the states suffer due to the big brother attitude of the union government. In center-state relations, the union government may be politically powerless in the last 15 years, but the union government has enormous powers under the constitution. The union, most of these powers were not used because of the political configuration. The Prime Minister was not in a position to use all those overriding powers of the union government, or the union government was not able to use all those overriding powers of the union government under the constitution, because the survival of the government depended on the support of several regional parties who had practically taken over the Delhi government. Like Trojan horses, they entered into New Delhi, and New Delhi no longer had a common will of governance, a common political will, a common general will, a common framework of governance. The government had become so highly fragmented, and that explains the kind of troubles that we got into. So Modi is familiar with the problems in center-state relations in the era of federal coalition governments, and therefore this familiarity would stand in good stead during his tenure as the Prime Minister of the country. Number 2, another point in this connection I would like to make is that Modi as Prime Minister has talked about Team India, and President Pranab Mukherjee has also made this point in his presidential address, which reflects the future policies of the government. Team India has been mentioned by Modi previously, and in the presidential address to the joint session of the parliament, which reflects the future policy of the government, Team India has also been mentioned again. It reminds me of Team Canada in the context of constituent diplomacy. Federal theorists call about constituent diplomacy to describe the relationship between the federal government and the state governments, and the Canadian federal system, Canadian parliamentary federal system has resorted to, recent prime ministers of Canada have resorted to the practice of what they call Team Canada, in which the Prime Minister is accompanied by provincial premiers who have interest in a specific foreign policy issues. So during the foreign trips of the Prime Minister, relevant provincial premiers join the Prime Minister as Team Canada abroad. Prime Minister Modi, without referring to the Canadian practice, has talked about Team India, and as a student of federal theory and practice, I can say that this Canadian practice has worked well, and let us hope it works well in India. A third point in this context I would like to make is that the structure of the mandate is such that powerful regional parties like AIADMK, Trinamool Congress, Biju Janata Dal have not only survived with strength, but also they remain outside the BJP-led NDA. This is an important point. In the previous coalition governments, the national party leading the coalition, Congress or the BJP, were joined by all the major regional parties most powerful regional parties, excepting a few, were part of the federal coalition government. And therefore, the cabinet itself became the arena of center-state conflict and ironing out of center-state differences. The Constitution has contemplated intergovernmental forums like Interstate Council or National Development Council to discuss center-state relations, interstate relations, but during the coalition phase, during the one-party dominant phase, the prime ministers did not set up these constitutional bodies. Interstate Council, which is mentioned in the Constitution, Article 263 provides for an interstate council consisting of the Prime Minister and all the chief ministers of the states. But during the Congress dominance, no Prime Minister took the initiative of formally setting up the Interstate Council. Informally, chief ministers' conferences, ministerial conferences, secretarial conferences, informally they were held, and National Development Council was set up by Prime Minister Nehru, but again not under Article 263 of the Constitution, but outside it, not by presidential order, but by cabinet resolution. And therefore, these bodies, these intergovernmental bodies do not have the kind of constitutional entrenchment that Interstate Council can have. Interstate Council was belatedly set up by the National Front government headed by VP Singh in 1990, as late as 1990. And it did not meet for 6 years. First meeting of the Interstate Council took place in 1996, and thereafter again no chief minister took it seriously, and union government as well as the state governments used other forums rather than this constitutional forum, because this is a formal constitutional forum and other forums are informal, and they allow greater degree of flexibility, greater degree of escape routes from formal commitments, and therefore Interstate Council or formal constitutional intergovernmental forums have never been strengthened. Although the Sarkaria Commission on Center-State Relations has recommended a strengthening of the Interstate Council, the Justice Madan Mohan Panchi Commission on Center-State Relations that reported later on also recommended the strengthening of the National Interstate Council, and both Sarkaria and Panchi commissions recommended that the National Development Council should be made a formal constitutional forum rather than a political forum set up by cabinet resolution. None of these recommendations have been set up, but let me hope that the present structure of the mandate, whereby some powerful regional parties remain outside the federal government, they would have interest in raising these issues and seeking constitutionalization and institutionalization of Interstate Council. The Rajya Sabha, the federal second chamber, reflects the party system in the states, and the government doesn't have a majority, and the Rajya Sabha is very crucial forum for legislation and constitutional amendments. And in constitutional amendments, passage of emergency, proclamations, presidential rule, or for some other matters, there is no provision for joint session of the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha to break the deadlock between the two houses, and therefore the Rajya Sabha, which represents the party system in the states, would also have a greater federal role and relevance.
Okay.
So with these words I would conclude my lecture. Thank you.
And I thank all of you friends for watching the lecture, and on behalf I thank Dr. MP Singh for giving such a comprehensive lecture. Thank you very much.